Okay, I wanted to go over what most of our clients that are worth the 100 million up to a billion and more are more concerned with when they're actually doing business with us. And this is something that even if you don't have that high net worth, something you ought to be looking at because I've seen so many people that are billionaires. I mean, you can go on the internet and pull them up that went from being a billionaire to virtually broke because of really stupid financial decisions. I mean, you can just, there's bunches of them. I mean, you can go on the internet and just see what happened to them. But I'll tell you, one of the things that they're concerned with more than anything is lawsuits and losing everything. And if you're looking for the best country in the world as far as structures go, with a zero statute of limitation period, there's only one country. Okay, it's not the Cook Islands, it's not Nevis, it's Belize. Okay, now Belize has a zero statute of limitation period on lawsuits, not only with their trust, but any of their entities, like your IBC or LLC. Let me give you an example of how it works because it can be a little bit confusing. And we have lawyers that, I'm an entrepreneur and a business person. We have lawyers that work through our company that work we deal with over 100 different countries. So we have specialists in these different countries that we work with that can work with you on this. But this is how it works pretty much. Okay, if you get a Belize IBC or a Belize trust, what happens is if you get a lawsuit comes up, it's instant. There is no time period from the time you actually set that structure up to the time they can, like a peephole, they can go in and sue during that period of time, from the time you set it up to the time that statute of limitation period ends. It's instant, okay? Not just on trusts, but also corporations. Now, that's the way Belize views it. The U.S. could view it totally different. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you own the shares of a corporation, okay, and it's determined that you lost the lawsuit, and you're in the U.S. and they know, you've disclosed your assets. Well, if you own the shares of that IBC that's offshore, okay, Belize IBC, then the courts can demand, that's part of the judgment, and they can throw you in jail if you don't pay those assets. Now, can they go and sue in Belize courts? No, the Belize courts won't let that case get through. They can't even get in the courts, okay? But if you're in the U.S. and the U.S. knows about these assets, they can pull that in the lawsuit, okay? And now, even if you set up a trust and it doesn't pertain to any statute of limitation period with Belize, if they can determine that you set this trust up because you knew that you had this problem, in other words, the problem comes up, you rush to form a trust, then that's called fraudulent conveyance. And that the courts, again, if they're going to have to sue in Belize courts to get access for those assets through the Belize courts, and they won't be able to do it because there's no statute of limitation. There's no period that they can go in and get those assets once that structure is set up. Now, again, if the U.S. determines that you set that trust up, the courts in the U.S. view trust as separate entities. But it depends on when you set that trust up. Were you already involved with a lawsuit and then you rush to get this done? This is why we tell people you need to be setting these structures up before anything is happening. In fact, you should be doing it before you think something's coming up, because that can be proven too, that you knew that this problem was coming up and then you rush to get the trust set up. Now, I'm not saying they would win that. I'm just saying that why wait to the last minute to do this? All you're doing is causing headaches for yourself. But again, a trust, if you have a structure set up where you have a LLC that's owned by, let's say, a Belize LLC owned by a Belize trust, there is no statute of limitation period on either one of those entities. Okay, it's protected at that point. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you some things that now the courts can, if you've got a trust, again, if you've got a trust set up that's a Belize trust, and the courts determine that they found out about that trust, but the assets were funded because the courts do view a trust as a separate entity than yourself, and they were funded before this problem came open, okay, then you should be totally protected. And you could be protected even during during what the government would call a fraudulent conveyance period. But I would not be waiting for that to happen. I mean, that's just stupid. That's like trying to get hurricane insurance when hurricanes coming to your house. You don't want to be doing it then. Now, will it keep you from getting a police trust? No. I mean, you can get that done. But again, if you're in the U.S., that's where your problem lies, if you're still in the U.S. And I've seen where before where they have proved fraudulent conveyance and the courts have basically thrown people in jail until the money was pulled out. And obviously, if the trustee doesn't give the money over, you basically play Russian roulette with the courts. How long are they going to keep you in jail before they let you out? And I have seen people go to jail for that, and the courts do eventually let them out. Some had short periods, some had longer periods. But the key thing is if the courts can't get hold of the assets, they can't get hold of the assets. But it's stupid to wait the last minute to do this. Now, there are a couple of things I want to tell you, too, when you set up trusts. What you'll find out is a lot of brokerage, especially brokerage companies, more so with brokerage companies than banks, that they're cutting their ties with a lot of these tax havens. Saxo Bank just did it. You got other companies that have done this too. Basically, you just get a letter and they say, hey, we're not dealing with any more residents from that country or entities from that country. In other words, if you got a Belize trust, okay, and Belize is a lot on the hit list of a lot of these brokers, okay. In fact, Saxo Bank just cut out a lot of, not just Saxo Bank, there's tons of these banks now that are brokerage companies. They're cutting their ties with people that are either that are residents in tax havens or have entities like a LLC or trust or whatever. This is a Belize trust, let's say, okay? So you could have two problems. You could be in a place that they don't like and resident there and also have a Belize entity. So you got two problems. And what you're going to have a problem on is you're going to have to divulge. You have to take those assets and you'll have to get them out of that brokerage company. And when you do that, you'll have to either sell the shares, which you have to sell them, wire it out to a bank that will do an internal transfer to get it out of that brokerage company because the bank won't take it anymore, or you can switch it to a brokerage company that will take it. Okay, but you got to remember, more and more of these places that are tax havens, they're hitting on them. They're hitting on Panama, St. Kitts, Belize. Two countries I saw have not been hit on so far. They're corporate structures. They do have statute of limitation periods. Either do have or they have an undetermined statute of limitation period, which means they don't have one. There are countries that have that. But I know right now that Cayman Islands and the British Virgin Islands, I know that a lot of the banks have not hit on them. Some of them have, some of them haven't. So, you just have to be ready to shift the money out if they hit on you because you're at the mercy of the brokerage company or the bank. They can come in and close you down whenever they want to. What you're going to find out, too, is if you're a U.S. citizen and you relinquish your U.S. citizenship, or you keep your citizenship and you just move outside the U.S. and you're not a U.S. resident anymore, there are a lot of countries that these brokerage companies, if you move to them, you're going to get a letter from them that says, hey, you're going to have to move your money out. Okay, we don't deal with residents from that country. Oh, but I'm a U.S. citizen. Doesn't make any difference. We don't deal with residents from the country you're from. So you either have to pack your bags up and move, or you're going to have to shift the money out and find another broker that will take from not just your entity, but where you're living also. It's a juggling act. And you're going to see this become more prevalent in the next few years as time goes on. That will not drop back. It will become more and more where you're going to see that happen. Now, the LLC owned by a trust, though, is going to be a lot better to do it than just having a trust owning your assets. And I'll tell you why. If you've got a trustee that controls that trust, and you're not a trustee on there, and a lot of U.S. citizens need to do that to really solidify the trust and protect it, then what you're going to find out is if the LLC is actually owned by the trust, it's easy because you could be the director on the LLC or the member, if it's a director on a corporation or a member on the LLC, and you can actually go in and make all the decisions and not have to hassle with having a trustee to basically go to every time you want to get something done, okay? And what that does is it gives you the freeway and still have the real big asset protection. So that's something you ought to think about, because whenever you have a trust and you're not the trustee on there and you have that brokerage company owned by that trust, you're going to have to get those trustees to sign everything. It's real complicated. It can be a real pain in the ass. You really should have that offshore corporation or the offshore LLC owned by a trust, and then and go forwards that way. That's the best way to go. But remember, as time goes tough, it will be somewhat aggravating because of the changes that are going on. You might have to switch brokerage accounts, and we'll keep you up with this. This is one of the reasons you look at stuff like this. We can keep you up with brokers that will take whatever area that you're from and help you in that way. Anyway, if you want to know more on this, go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. And I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, just put it below. And don't forget, hit the subscribe button at the right of your screen right here. You get new videos automatically as they come out. And I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.